Hi everyone. This week in our discussion of complex sentences for IELTS writing, we're going to look at another structure which we refer to as a subordinate clause, main clause sentence. Now to do so, we need to take a step back and look at what we studied last week, where we looked at using dependent clauses and independent clauses. And you'll remember that a dependent clause was one which didn't make sense on its own, whereas an independent clause was one that did make sense on its own. So I work in Singapore, is an example of an independent clause. And you will recall that last week we created compound sentences by linking two independent clauses. I work in Singapore, but my brother works in Melbourne, for example, is a compound sentence. This week we take it a step further and we look at a structure where we combine an independent clause with a dependent clause, and we refer to one as the subordinate clause and one as the main clause, and we link them using what are known as subordinate conjunctions. And I've listed some here on the board behind me. Words like unless, although, even though, while, because, when. These are all examples of subordinate conjunctions. And to illustrate what I mean by a subordinate clause, main clause sentence, I'm going to look at, give me one moment here, the task 2 essay that we've set for the Band 9 program for this week, which is, many people believe that they should spend their money to enjoy life at present. Others, however, think that they should save it for the future. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Okay, so in a question like that where there's a discussion required, it is quite possible that you might need to construct sentences using elements like this. So, people must save for their retirement. Their lifestyle will be limited. Now, people must save for their retirement is an independent clause that makes sense on its own. Their lifestyle will be limited, on the other hand, is a dependent clause. It doesn't make sense on its own. And we can link these two clauses using our subordinate conjunctions here, in which case we'll be able to create a subordinate clause, main clause sentence. And there are a couple of different ways that we could do this. Unless people save enough for their retirement, their lifestyle will be limited. So there we have a complex sentence using both a dependent clause and independent clause. We could also use something like people must save enough money for their retirement or their lifestyle will be limited. So the conjunction can be placed at different points in the sentence. It's even possible to reverse the order of the sentence. So people's lifestyle will be limited unless they save enough money for their retirement. So there are different ways that you can structure this type of complex sentence, but the key is that there will always be a dependent clause, an independent clause, and a conjunction. And I think many will recognize that these are the types of sentences that you are already trying to put into your essays. I encourage you to keep trying that. Remember that in scoring for GRA, if there is no attempt to insert complex sentences into an essay, you're going to be stuck at a 6. Whereas if there is an attempt to insert complex sentences, but there are some errors in the grammar that arise as a result, you will not be particularly heavily penalised for that, and you'll still be eligible for a 7. So I encourage you to experiment with trying these types of sentences in your IELTS essays. Okay, that's all for this week. Bye-bye.